Hey everyone, and welcome once again to What Lurks on Channel X. This week we have something special for you. But first, I want to let you all know what's happening with us. This coming Saturday, September 17th, you can find us at Grindhouse at Cafe Z. Grindhouse is a mostly quarterly event in Union, New Jersey, showcasing some of the newest films in independent horror and sci-fi. This Saturday, we'll be at the show premiering our first 2 new episodes of our new web series, Dark Tales from Channel X. I know, clever, right? So, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area this weekend, come out and see some great short films for the day. There'll also be some musical performances and vendors set up for the day, including ourselves. So if you've ever wanted to pick up any of our films on DVD, this is your chance. You can head over to horrornerd.net for more information and buy your tickets. Just to let you know, Cafe Z is also a full bar and restaurant, so you can watch some movies and have a drink or two while enjoying some excellent food. I hope to see you guys there. As for this week's episode, we have another mini episode for you. About 3 weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to be interviewed on the paranormal radio show True Ghost Stories. The show was hosted by Elsie Ginsberg and Sherri, and it can be heard regularly on Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on WLOR.net. Now, I've known Adam for a few years, and him and his wife Elsie run Twitch Productions, which host, if you don't know, they host the Macabre Faire Film Festival, Haunt Fair, and numerous other events throughout the year. On True Ghost Stories, they've interviewed a plethora of paranormal investigation crews, so I was really excited when Adam asked me to be a guest on the show. We discussed my own personal shadow person experiences, among a few other subjects, so this week we're here presenting the interview in full to you, our Channel X listeners. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll speak to you again at the end.
The end is near. Felt the ravens threatening.
Hello, this is Elsie Ginsberg. Welcome to True Ghost Stories here on W Rock Radio, wrockradio.com or WLOR.net. You are at the right place at the right time if you want to hear some amazing paranormal stories and experiences. So grab yourself a drink, tuck yourselves in, and get comfortable. Get ready to face your fears. Come out. Come out. Come out of your homes. Come out from wherever you may roam. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. We here at True Ghost Stories are in search for more answers to our questions, more research, and more paranormal experiences by you, our listeners. There are too many people out there that have either gone through or are going through some type of paranormal experience at one time in their life. We want to hear all about it. We want to help others understand what it is and how to deal with it. Through our interviews, we can get a better understanding on what we must do. We feel we are not alone, and we want to reveal it. I am Elsie Ginsberg, host of True Ghost Stories radio show, and I am a witness. We want you out there in the world to also become one of our True Ghost Stories witnesses. So don't be afraid to share with us. There are more people out there that you do not realize that have had some type of paranormal experience. They're in fear of sharing due to critique from society. Some make them feel like they're crazy, or that something is wrong with them. Well, we here at True Ghost Stories do not think you are crazy. We're open-minded, we care, we want to help you understand what is happening around you, comfort you, support you, and help others to be aware. Tonight, I have a gentleman, folks, who is joining us, who is going to do just that. You know, here on this show, we have a lot of paranormal investigators that come onto the program. We've had folks involved in the spirit realms involved in the program. And, I'm sure many of you out there are listening and you're not running around in the middle of the night through creepy places and, trying to find paranormal activity. Perhaps you have a 9-to-5 job. Perhaps you work the night shift somewhere and odd things happen when you're working. Or perhaps you happen to be a horror filmmaker, like my next guest tonight. I'm talking about none other than Manny Serrano. This is the co-owner with his wife. He's writer, director, video editor at Mass Grave Pictures. This guy is all about the horror, folks, and he has experienced some paranormal activity in his life. And so I thought, what better than someone we can all closer relate to, again, if we haven't been searching the paranormal and it's come to us, than someone who has had a similar experience. Manny, are you with me?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
All right. How are you doing?
I am excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. We are.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We're about to unravel some tales of tales from the crypt, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because you are the horror master. I know we were joking around previously about Miskatonic University and the atrocities that you study there, etc. But I wanted to dig in a little bit into your past, so the folks here listening can get a sense of who you are and what you're about, and
Sure.
And then get into some of these experiences. And I know one of them that you wanted to share, and I was remiss, I forgot to mention, you're also a radio host, and one of your experiences that you're going to share with us is something from your show.
Yeah.
That a friend had mentioned, or rather a caller had brought up at one time or another.
Yeah, one of our listeners, yes.
Right. So let's get into the beginning here with horror and your background in horror. Why that for you?
It's lifelong obsession, put simply. I grew up in the 80s when there was horror pretty much everywhere. It was big business, especially for kids, with all the different TV shows and cartoons and movies and toys. And, they marketed it towards the younger demographic. And
Right.
I took it hook, line, and sinker, and I haven't turned back since.
Like
Always
many
loved
of
it.
us.
Yeah.
There really was a time when horror was there was just like you just said, it was kind of this maybe an awakening, the way they were kind of marketing it more towards teens and such, and some real icons were developed during that time, thinking 70s and 80s, and they're still around to this day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's something. So you went from a love of horror into horror filmmaking and writing, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I was curious, and I think I mentioned something like this once before, but as someone who had a paranormal experience, what kind of came first? Was it a paranormal experience, and then you happened along horror as subject matter, or was horror already sort of in you at some point, and wow, suddenly there's an experience, and could this stuff be real? Which came first?
I think it kind of happened all at the same time, approximately. I mean, when you're young, everything kind of gets jumbled into one big memory.
Right.
But I've been watching horror films as long as I can remember, especially in the 80s with the home video boom. It was. I had a video store down the block from me that I could rent from all the time. On the way home, I'd pick something up and watch it, and then I could bring it back the same day and get another one for free, which was just amazing back then. But I had my first experience. I believe I was 6 or 7 years old, and I know that I was already I'm pretty sure I was already a horror fan at the time. Yeah, it's just always been in me. The first experience I had, which is something that was actually kind of recurring, was a shadow person experience. And I remember, because you'd fall asleep with the TV on, and your parents would come in when you're asleep and turn it off. And I specifically remember one night I shared a room with my brother, and he's younger than me. So if I was 6, he was about 4. So he was asleep already. And I was mostly awake, and I remember my mother walking in and turning the TV off. And sometimes I'd get up, and after she went to bed, I'd get up, turn it back on, and keep watching.
Right.
But tonight, that night, I guess I was just tired, and I didn't. So all right, that's it. TV's off. So I went to sleep.
Now, just real quick, your age around this time?
About 6 or 7 years old.
6 or 7. Okay.
And I remember waking up a couple hours later. And I could see a little bit of a light. It seemed like the light from the TV was on, and I saw like a shadow cross the TV. I assumed, when you piece it together later on, you kind of figure out, what did you assume? I really don't remember what I assumed, but I'm going to assume that I thought that I had woken up, turned it back on, and fallen asleep again. You do those sorts of things without thinking, just kind of motor function.
Right.
So I assumed the TV was on, and my mother was coming in to turn it off, and then I saw another shadow and another one, and I went to pick up my head to see, and I realized I couldn't move. So what now I know is sleep paralysis.
Was that your first experience with sleep paralysis, and it just happened to be in conjunction with, with something happening?
As far as I can tell, yeah. As far as I don't remember it happening before that. I certainly don't remember before that. Yeah, that was the first one, and so I'm laying there, and it feels like a bit of an eternity, but it's really only a matter of seconds. So I tried to pick my head up, and I couldn't, and then I saw the shadow, and I saw it again and again, and I'm opening my eyes wider just to kind of adjust to the light and the darkness, and it kind of looks almost like there's multiple shadows circling the room. It looked like, I thought if the TV were on, it would have to be like 3-4 people in the room walking back and forth across the TV. It kind of felt like they were spinning around. And after a moment or so, it just kind of it faded away, and I was able to move, and I got up and I looked around. I didn't see anything. My brother was asleep. I got up, I walked out into the hallway. My parents were asleep with all the lights. Everything was off. The TV was off. So I don't even know where the light itself was coming from. It was just kind of maybe thinking about it, maybe the shadows themselves that I was seeing were so dark, it made the room seem brighter than it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But that was my first one.
Almost like in a dark room, you could spot complete absence of light.
Yes.
In areas. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is from that's what everybody seems to call it, like an absence of light, almost like the shadow person itself is sucking in the light. Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can envision what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Was this the only experience that you had with this, or is this something recurring with these shadow people?
The shadow people actually recurred with me a couple of times through my life. Later on, I'm going to say I think it happened. It's happened a couple of times in the middle of that, but another one that really stuck with me, I was about 14 or 15 or so. Mm-hmm. And it was Christmas. I remember it was around Christmas time, because I specifically remember there was my mother would work late come holidays. And so I would be I'd sit in the living room, and there'd be nothing but the Christmas tree light on.
Right.
And I'd watch, pick a movie and just sit and watch TV. So I was sitting on the couch, and the way the apartment is situated, the doorway from the hall was like behind me and to my left a little, but I could just enough where I could see it in my peripheral vision. Mm-hmm. And I specifically remember watching TV, and it looked to me like the hallway door opened. It's like there was light that came in from the hallway into the now dark. With the way the door was facing, it was towards the kitchen. So I saw some light in the kitchen, and I saw a shadow, and then I saw the door close. And again, I'm 14 or 15 years old, which means my brother was about 11. So my first assumption was that my brother was messing with me. He was trying to sneak up on me in the darkness. So I didn't turn. I figured, you know what, if he's going to try this, then I'm going to jump at him when he comes at me. And so I continue watching TV, watching it in my peripheral vision, and I see the shape kind of walking toward me in the darkness in my left side peripheral. And as it's getting closer, I start realizing that this is way too tall to me, my 11-year-old brother.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to a point where where if it was a person, it would probably be about 3 or 4 feet away from me, when I realized this is extremely tall. And I turned my head, and it was gone. And
was this in the same apartment? Or,
yes. Yes, same apartment. Yeah.
Did these shadow experiences all happen in that same place over the years, or did they begin to happen outside of that as well, in different areas or places that you lived?
Well, one of them was the last one I had was actually out in a park with a friend of mine. The two of us went up into the park, and this was, I think I was 19 or so at the time, about 19 years old, and the two of us went up into a park, and we had heard some sounds. And now this is where it's really kind of crazy. And I've told this story to a couple of people, and even telling the story, I feel like, are you out of your mind? But so the two of us were up in a park, and this was about 11:30 at night. We're walking around, we hear a sound, and we hear something like kind of in the brush around us, and we start walking in. We go farther into the trees, and we just start to get that feeling like something's out there. Now, I mean, this is Queens, it's New York. We're right by Brooklyn, so there could be literally anybody in this park. It could be a drug dealer's sitting out there for all we know. Right. So we get to a point and we say, you know something, if there's somebody doing something out here, they're not going to be pleased. So, we kind of got a little nervous. We said, you know what, let's just get the hell out of here. So we turned around and we walked away, and we see in the distance ahead of us, because we had kind of walked up a little bit of a hill, we see down at the bottom of the hill, there's a shape at the bottom. And this is why I say this is great, because we both saw this shape. And we're walking down this hill closer to it, and it's transparent. So now this is not a periphery. This is looking straight at this thing, and it's maybe about 100 feet ahead of us at the hill, down the hill below. Right. We go a few more steps forward, and we really don't want to walk toward it. So I take a right turn to go down the other side of the hill, and I say, to hell with this, I'm getting the hell out of here. And we walk down the hill. Well, I walk down the hill, and next thing I turn around, and my buddy is still up at the hill, walking straight down toward it. And now I see that the shape is gone now. And he walks down the regular path the way we came up, right toward where the shape was. And right around the point where the shape was, he collapsed. Now, I don't mean like his knees buckled. He literally fell forward, flat on his face, and hit the ground.
Was he conscious?
Didn't try, almost like he blacked out for a moment. When he hit the ground, he was conscious, but he went face first down, and I ran back up the hill to get him. And I specifically remember, I thought something was wrong with him, because he wears glasses, and anybody who wears glasses, when you fall down, your first instinct is to cover your face. And he had no inclination to cover his face. So his face went flat down into the ground, and he broke his glasses. So I figured he blacked, something happened. He was unconscious. I got to him, and I picked him up, and he didn't know what had happened. And the two of us got the hell out of there. When we got back to my house, same house now, through the course of the rest of the night, we're down now. At this point, I wasn't sharing a bedroom with my brother. I had, actually built a bedroom in the basement for myself. So me and my friends all hung out down there, and we're sitting in the basement, and it's about 3:00 in the morning, and we start to hear footsteps coming down the stairs. Normally we hear these footsteps because my mother does laundry, so we figure she'd be coming down, but I said, it's 3:00 in the morning. There's no way she's up doing laundry right now. We hear steps come down the staircase, and kind of like shuffling towards the door. And next thing we hear, it was a kind of like a pounding on the wall. And that's what we thought it was at first. And after 2 or 3 of them, we realized it actually kind of sounded like something was physically walking up the wall as though the wall were a floor.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're hearing these footsteps go up the wall, and then it goes across the ceiling to us.
Now this is in the room that you're in. You're hearing
this? Yes. This is it's a room in the basement, and it's that my father had helped me build, and we put up the sheetrock and everything. So it's just a room in the corner of the basement, a little 10 by 10 bedroom that we built. And so I hear the steps go up the wall, across the ceiling, and down the wall next to where we're sitting. in the bedroom. Now, on the other side of that wall is the concrete of the basement. So there's only about maybe 8 inches between this sheetrock and the concrete. So there's absolutely no way that there's someone behind this.
Right.
It's physically impossible. And so we heard that, we jumped up and we went outside and we sat on the porch for the rest of the night. Now, I have a friend, I still have a friend. His grandfather is I forget exactly what the term is for it, but they're from the Dominican Republic, and he's essentially the equivalent of a witch doctor. Okay. And the two of us, I called my buddy at 6 o'clock in the morning as soon as I knew that he would be like awake. And as soon as I knew he'd be awake, I called him. I said, look, I got to see your grandfather. We went over to his grandfather's house, and he said to us that it seemed like we had an entity attached to us, and he did a blessing on us and this whole crazy ritual thing, reading the tea leaves and all that stuff. And I have not seen a single shadow person since.
Wow. So you saw a shadow when you were during this basement part. There was a visual of a shadow?
No, we didn't see it.
That was just hearing.
Yes.
When you had the shadow experience, I'm trying to stick to the ones that were in the same home. When you had
it's all the same house. Yes.
I'm not going to talk about the park one yet. When you had the experience with the shadows at different times, did you also hear, or was it more visual? No,
it was all visual. There were no sounds other than that one where it seemed like the door opened from the hallway, which is what still baffles me, because I could swear I saw the door open and close. I saw the light come from the hallway and illuminate the kitchen and then close again.
Right. Wow. Ooh, these don't all sound like sleep paralysis. Only the first one. So that kind of throws that out the window. Oh, wow, man, this is really something. And ever since that experience with sort of being cleared from this, that part of it of experiences have ended.
From what I can tell, yes, I haven't. I've seen I've seen things in like that periphery where you swear you see something move, and then you turn and there's nothing there. I see that. I've actually seen it a lot more recently, the last 2 years or so. But I don't know. I kind of think that's it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of the thought is in my head, because actually our new movie is about, we have shadow creatures and sleep paralysis in the movie. So I've kind of started to feel like maybe because it's constantly on my mind,
right?
Almost that I'm just manifesting it myself, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's interesting you just went there, because I was going to say, as a guy who has a vivid imagination, you're a writer, a guy into the horror genre and who appreciates good sci-fi. Yeah. I was curious, in your humble opinion and from your experiences, it just to extrapolate on things you've heard or maybe researched as you're going through this, what do you think shadow people are?
I really don't know. I really don't know. The majority of experiences, specifically the ones you see in that side moment, I'm convinced that there is an explanation for it, and it comes in. One of the explanations is I forget the actual word for it. It's a sound thing, where sound at a low frequency, very low frequency sounds can actually vibrate the cones and rods in your eyes without you knowing it, and it causes you to see shapes and to see things. And I know that ghost hunting teams have actually debunked a lot of ghostly and shadow people experiences based on in a building, based on the fact that maybe there was some sort of like air conditioning duct or a heating unit or something that was vibrating the building itself.
Right.
And when they turned the power off, experiences or they fix the vents or whatever, the experiences would go away. And so it's been kind of attributed to the fact that it's a physical thing that your eyes are trying to make sense out of the vibrations that they're feeling.
Right.
And I know that some of them can be explained by that, but the ones where people have seen it dead on, they're looking straight at this and it's there, I couldn't possibly say what it was.
Right. The home that this was all happening in, how long did your family live there? Do they still live there?
Still live there. My mother owns the house.
Okay. So she was there before these things started, or it started for you. Has anyone, like your mom or dad, ever mentioned that they've had an experience in that house?
Not them. No. We moved in when I think I had just turned 2 when we bought the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been there ever since. My grandparents were on the top floor, and me and my brother were on the main floor.
Mm-hmm. When was the house built? Do you know? Was it prior to? Was it relatively new when you guys got there? Is.
Most of the houses in the neighborhood are late 1800s to early 1900s. The neighborhood itself was there was a mining. It's kind of a mine. Well, it was a mining community, and these houses were all built as like weekly residents for the local miners.
Right.
And they're really strangely, like every single room is totally like they all have their own entrance and exit to the hallway. So every room has a window and a doorway that leads into the hall. So it's kind of like railroaded. With one with a communal bathroom and kitchen on each floor, and then the hallway runs alongside the rooms, and each room has a doorway into it. So every room was rented out to an individual person, and Monday through Friday, these miners would live in these apartments, live in these rooms, and then on the weekends they would go home to their families.
Right.
So this was
interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm sure now, listening to that, that there's probably a lot of things that have gone down under that roof before you guys got there.
Mm-hmm. Quite possible.
Wow.
There used to be a room in the basement. The guy who owned this before us was a locksmith. And there was this really cool room in the basement that I filmed in before we renovated the basement and made really cool little. It looked like a little torture room. Like the guy had built it himself out of like 2x4s, and this had easily been since like the 60s.
Wow.
There was even a calendar still hanging in the basement from 1973.
Wow. You didn't find any like old fingernails on the floor or anything like that, did you?
No, but a lot of his old tools were there. There was still keys hanging up all around the walls, and locks and a lot of really old cool locks. Like those really big heavy iron cast ones. You know, a lot of that really cool stuff. And the room itself had like this wooden door that had a big heavy latch on it. It was on the back corner of the basement. There was one light hanging from a wire that turned. So even just stepping into it seemed like you were like it looked like you were inside the Evil Dead cabin inside this little room.
Wow.
Really, really cool.
You know, I've been in rooms like that where it could have just as well have been a set for a horror film, and you're just looking around and you see just such old, amazing things, and it can be quite creepy. And honestly, living above that room, I don't know if I could do it.
I think that's it might be part of. Yeah, it might be part of why I'm so into it. Like why a lot of horror movies really don't faze me. I just enjoy it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was just always kind of embedded in me.
Right. Some desensitizing due to your surroundings.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very cool, and I can imagine. I mean, geez, probably as a teen, just hanging out with friends and checking out things in that room or whatever must have been pretty crazy. So The park experience, this wasn't a shadow per se. This seemed more like something transparent, you said, correct?
Yes, it seemed. I mean, it looked like a shadow. It looked like.
Oh, okay.
It looked like a shadow because it was. I mean, it was transparent, but it was still black. It wasn't that solid black though. Which at the same time, if I think about it, you say maybe because a lot of the shadow person experiences, they seem so dark because you're already inside and it's already dark.
Right.
So maybe if you were to experience them outdoors, because there was a right where it was, there was a street light illuminating the area. So maybe it was the fact that there was that street light is the reason we could see, because there was actually kind of a light almost behind it. Maybe that's the reason we could see behind it. But the fact that we both saw it is really what gets me. That we both saw the same thing. It makes me say like something was there. It wasn't just like, well, my eyes playing tricks on me. Two separate people saw it in the same spot.
Right. And now with your friend, did his recollection end with, I was walking and fell down? Or does his recollection end with, hey, how did I even get down this path?
No, it was he remembered he said he was getting kind of dizzy. And that's why he didn't follow me down the hill. So he just kept walking, because I went down the side of the hill, which was all trees and dirt and everything. This was actually like a dirt path. Right. So I just went through the trees, and he said he was dizzy and he felt like he couldn't, like he wouldn't be able to navigate through it. He felt like he was going to fall over to begin with, and he didn't want to do it. But I had already took off away from. So by the time I turned around, he had continued walking down the dirt path, and he fell right at the spot where we had seen the standing. And he said he remembered getting dizzy, and then it kind of went black. He felt the impact, but maybe just because his whole body ached, I'm sure, when he hit the ground. Right. So he could feel the impact, but next thing he knew, I was picking him up off the ground.
Wow. Guys, we're with Manny Serrano here tonight from Mass Grave Pictures, horror filmmaker. We're digging into some true ghost stories he experienced here on True Ghost Stories Radio. Manny, the experiences that you've had with these various, let's call them shadow people, now you mentioned in this one, this is why I'm asking, where you kind of ran as soon as you saw this, you ran the opposite way type of thing. Now, was that just reflexive, knee-jerk, or was that because you sensed, everybody has a gut feeling, I joke around, my son call it your spider sense, whatever. But in these instances, was any of that kind of going off for inside of you, like, this is a negative vibe that I'm catching here?
Totally had a negative feeling on it. Totally had a bad negative feeling about it. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. But it wasn't that I just saw it and ran. The two of us stood there for a few seconds and looked at it, and my brain said, well, the street is still, like, this path leads us to the street, but if I just go straight to the right, I'll hit the street as well. Right. So just go through the street, because we could see the street from where we were standing. It was just through the trees. So my thing, just growing up in the neighborhood, I know the topography. So I said, all right, if I go through this, I'll get to the street much faster, and I don't have to cross this thing's path.
Right. What, at the time that it happened, what did, I know we're going back years here, but do you recall what you guys thought it was? Because you said both of you saw it. We kind of comparing notes on what you thought it was?
Yeah, we really didn't put too much into what it exactly it was. I know that the area itself, it's, again, things sound so silly when you say them, but I mean, I guess that's the point. That's the point of the show. It's the point of the show, right? It sounds so silly, but I know at the time there was a couple of kids, because it's the 90s, and that's just kids were into this at the metal, and with the metal kids, they all thought they were devil worshippers. If you go up to the area still now, even to this day, you see satanic stars all up around, spray painted on the trees and everything. And there was actually a little concrete slab. It looks like they started the foundation for a building or something and never finished it. Like it's maybe like a 4 or 5 foot wide concrete slab inside the dirt. Maybe there was they were building something at some point and they just never completed it.
Perfect for an altar or a sacrifice.
Yes, and that's exactly that's exactly what people use it for. Funny you say sacrifice because there actually was one up there.
Wow.
Maybe 2 or 3 years before that. I believe it was 91 or 92. And I had told another friend of mine about this because his friend was I told him recently. Because his father was a police officer at the time. And I had told him the story and he said that he remembers his father talking about at the time. There was a baby bear, a baby brown bear that was found up in that park, skinned up in that area. So there really were people doing rituals up there at one point in time.
And this was in Queens?
Yes, this is in Forest Park, Queens. I'm going to have to look it up again because at the time we couldn't remember the details. And I actually found one article on it because, again, this was 91 or 92 that had happened. So, there's really no internet articles on it.
Right.
But I did find one article that I had sent to him after we had talked about it. I'm going to have to look it up again. And when I find it, I'll send it to you.
Right. It's just so strange. I recall in the 80s, I was out in Suffolk County, and I remember there was something going on with, I was in high school at the time, and there was some kind of nonsense going on with devil worshipping a town over in the town of Northport.
The Satanic Panic.
Right, all that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's really bizarre. I mean, maybe now being older and not hanging out all night in the park, I'm not exposed to the rumor mill anymore of those type of things. But it really was something I remember back during that time period. I'm sure it probably goes on to this day, but I remember in those days it was, going to explore Pilgrim State Hospital or one of these other type of places, and you'd get into these things, and there was all sorts of markings and spray painted this or that, and it was like you'd say to yourself, why am I here? Why did I come out to this? This is not what I need to see, and thank God there's nobody here who's practicing this stuff,
Yeah. Well, out where you were, you had Cropsey out where you are, right? Or is that a little farther out from you?
Cropsey.
The child killer from that was in the it was a abandoned. Oh no, sorry, that's Staten Island. That was Staten Island.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm thinking, wow, I don't recall that. Okay.
Yeah, Cropsey was Staten Island. It was a child killer Cropsey himself was that urban legend of that guy who kidnaps kids and then it turns out that there really was somebody who was doing it, and there was a mental hospital that was closed down in the 80s that was nearby, also right outside this same park. So when we were young, that story, which we didn't call Cropsey at the time, that's a name that I just heard recently. And I'm like, but that's the same thing. I've just never heard this name Cropsey. Because kids have no sense of distance or anything. Like that was Staten Island, but there's a mental hospital right here. Oh my God, he must have been here. Right. When you're 9 years old, he must have been here too.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff around here, specifically because this neighborhood is so old. A lot of these buildings. This was one of the oldest neighborhoods in Queens, right here, and the neighborhood just to the west of us we're right on the border of Brooklyn, and all those buildings are concrete buildings. All the apartments and everything there are concrete, so they're even older than the buildings where I'm at. We have 2 or 3 Jewish cemeteries that have been there since the mid 1800s at least. I'm about 10 blocks away from where Houdini's buried.
Wow.
There's quite a bit of history right around my neighborhood.
Unbelievable. You meant, and maybe we covered it. You said you had two stories. Were those the two stories as the second one in the park, or was there another experience at some
No,
point?
the other one was actually not my experience. But it was in this house. When my grandparents died in 2001, and me and my girlfriend at the time moved into the apartment upstairs, and we kept the same layout for a while of everything. Now everything is switched around. I have the living room where the bedroom was, and the bedroom where the living room was, because it just made more sense. But
Right.
So basically, when we moved in, we bought a new bed, we bought the new couches, we bought all new furniture and everything, and moved it in. But it ended up being all more or less the same location, the same spots that my grandparents had them in. This was, let me think, that was 2001. So this was early 2002 or so. So I'm 22 at the time, and I was working in Manhattan. Me and my girlfriend both worked in the same building, but we worked different schedules. So she would usually get up around, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning or so. And for some reason, I woke up before her. I usually would wake up till about 9. I woke up at like 4:35, and I just couldn't fall back asleep. So about 5:30 or so, I got up and I said, you know what, I'm awake. If I keep tossing and turning, I'm going to wake her up, and she's going to be upset that she lost that half hour of sleep. So I decided, I got up, I'll go take a shower, I'll get dressed, and whatever. And I come back into the room, and she's just, after I'm dressed and everything, I come back in, and she's just waking up. She says to me, "What the hell were you doing?" And I said, "I was taking a shower." No. Before that, I was laying in bed. She's like, no. You got up, you left. I heard you get up and leave, and then you came back in. She says, and you sat down. You sat there for a few minutes, and then you left again, and now you're back again. So what were you doing? She says, were you looking? And I said, no, I didn't do anything. I've been in the shower for the last 10 minutes. So she got up, and she's like, no. And she literally reenacted what she heard me do. And I watched her, and I sat down, and I stepped back for a minute, and I said, oh my God. Now I figured out right then and there what it was. Again, we've been living here since about 82 or so. My grandfather's a World War II veteran. And there's in this same park, there's this little shack up there where a lot of the retired men would go up there, and they would put their bets on the horses and stuff up there. My grandfather went up there one day, and he saw that, and he met these guys, and he realized a lot of these guys were also World War II veterans, some of them who he knew at the time, and didn't realize that they all lived in the same area.
Right.
So for, I'm going to say 20 years at least. And he might have even been doing it before we moved, because before this, we lived a few blocks away from here in an apartment building. So it might have even been before then. So I'm going to, at least 20 years, the entire time he lived in this house anyway. He would get up in the morning. He'd listen to the radio, get his weather and everything. He'd go get coffee, and he would bring all coffee and cards and dice and everything. And my grandfather actually ran the horse betting for all the retired vets up there. But he had a routine. Every single day at 5:30 in the morning, he would his 1010 winds would turn on. He'd get up, he'd use the bathroom. He'd come back in. He would sit down on the edge of the bed. He would listen to the radio. Then he would get up, put his shoes on, and leave. And this is the moment where I pieced it together, because where she said I sat down on the bed is the exact same spot my grandfather sat in every single day for 20 years that I know of.
Wow. To
the point where when we moved up here and we threw out the bed, there was actually a depression in the corner of that bed where he sat down. Okay. And I said to her, you literally heard my grandfather. That's what you heard. You heard my grandfather. And she said, well, if the place is going to be haunted, then I'm happy it's them. The later on, I'm not with her anymore. Now I live in the same apartment with my wife, with Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, we switched the apartment around. So now the bedroom is where the living room used to be. And she has this, she doesn't like sleeping alone sometimes because she sometimes feels like there's something in the room. And I say, well, where would that, going back to this story, I told her this story. I said, where would you hear this? Where would you get that feeling? She said, right over here. I said, that was the living room where my grandmother would sit watching TV. My grandmother and grandfather, you know, they're that old generation where even if you hate each other, you stay married. So the two of them had that for a long time, that kind of animosity with each other. So they kind of stayed away from each other. He stayed in his bedroom, watched TV. She sat in the living room. And I said, and this is where, and my grandmother would always sit in that living room. And that's where she sat, right where my wife kind of gets this feeling. And so she's like, okay, well, again, it might be him. The other part of this now too, sometimes in the middle of the night, around 4, 5 a.m., you can actually hear remnants of a radio station. It sounds like there's a radio faintly playing in the other room, like talk radio. And I said, well, he listened to 1010 Wins every single day.
Right.
So
that is wild.
So
Absolutely
as far as the two of us are concerned, my grandparents are still here with us.
Wow. Well, at least you kind of know who they are in this instance.
Yes.
They're watching over you, and you feel a little bit protected by it all, and not ultimately, really freaked out. Say hi to Lindsay for me, by the way. Let me ask you a question. You and I were speaking recently, and you mentioned, I believe that I'm correct with What Lurks on Channel X was your radio program where you covered various topics, and some of those topics included the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious if you can go into one of those stories that was extreme for you.
Well, when the show itself is me and my friend Eric who do it. We pre-record these shows, so we kind of just talk stories. And this is one of the stories we told on that. He told the story he told was about his own shadow person experience. He was in a hotel room in 2008 or 2009 or so after his, I think he said it was his grandmother or grandfather died. And he was in a hotel, he's sharing a room with his sister, and he remembers waking up in the middle of the night to also having sleep paralysis, and a shadow figure standing at the edge of his bed, just standing over him, like staring down at him. He said this had to be 6.5 feet tall, huge, total absence of light, black figure. Just staring at him, and he couldn't move. And after a few moments, when he finally was able to move again, it just kind of faded and disappeared.
Sleep paralysis isn't the history. I'm not looking it up on Google or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you may know, but isn't the history of sleep paralysis in terms of mythology and stories that almost like there's a demon on your chest or something like this? I could have sworn I had seen images or drawings like that, because I hadn't looked into sleep paralysis in the past because I've experienced it myself. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. Well, it's what you're probably picturing is it's a famous painting called The Nightmare. That's the painting is actually a central focus of our new movie, because I wanted to really get into that. And what it comes from in the painting is a woman laying on her bed, and there's a small imp-looking creature sitting on her chest, and there's a horse. Like you see the head of a horse kind of looking in the window over her, looking at them. And it all comes from the sleep paralysis feels like someone's holding you down. And a lot of people report that they have a shortness of breath. So the legend made it that there's a creature sitting on your chest, holding you down, sucking out your breath like they did in Cat's Eye.
Right.
And the horse is it's a German lore where I think it just became through
just misinterpretation of language, where the word nightmare is, the mare, a horse. But the word mare itself doesn't actually refer to a horse. I'm not quite I don't remember off the top of my head what it refers to, but when Henry Fuseli made the painting, he physically, painted the nightmare itself as being the physical manifestation of a white horse with large lidless eyes. And so that's the most famous painting of it. And he did a lot of paintings in his life, and this is his most famous one. It's
right.
And he did a lot of different versions. So any image you come up with of a creature sitting on a chest goes back to this painting, and that was in 1600s or so.
Wow. Was sleep paralysis something that you've had throughout your life, or just the random couple of experiences you mentioned?
I've had it once or twice. But it's usually a couple of times other than that. But usually it was after a nightmare. What sleep paralysis is, and it's physically, is a when you go to sleep, your brain secretes this enzyme that keeps your body paralyzed. So this way you don't act out your dreams, because your brain thinks your dreams are real. So if you're walking around in your dream, your body will get up and walk, which is what explains a lot of sleepwalking.
Right.
So what the sleep paralysis itself is in the medical form of it is that you woke up before that enzyme in your body wore off. Before your body realizes that you're awake. It takes a moment. So that's where that really comes from.
It's interesting. I've had it a few times in my life, even to adulthood, and every time that I can recall having it, seemed to be more, or at least I think, seemed to be more when I initially laid down to go to sleep or to rest or something like that. And for whatever reason, most of the times that it has happened in my life, something has scared me enough that I woke myself from screaming.
That's a myoclonic twitch, it's called, where your body thinks that the dream is real and it's trying to escape. And that's where you get that sudden jolt that wakes you up when when your body just jumps in bed. That's I believe it's called a myoclonic twitch. I think that's the word.
Mine isn't so sudden. It's more of like screaming for who's ever next to me.
So you get actual like a night terror scream.
Yeah, and I've woken to the sound of my voice screaming in slow motion.
Wow.
Like very, very odd. And I'll give you an example. The most recent one, I think, was a couple of years ago. And it literally was, I was exhausted and laid down in bed. And the next thing I knew, what looked like if you were to take a white piece of paper and let's say a black pen, and you just start scribbling a circular motion, let's say, right? Like odd circles or whatever, until you basically just blacking out an area of the page. Yeah, that's kind of what I saw happening in the corner of my room on the ceiling. And after a little while of seeing it, I guess a panic must have come over me. And next thing I knew, I was kind of screaming in my dream for my wife to wake me up. And that never happened. So I woke myself up through the sound of my own voice. And woke up to hear myself saying, like here I am saying, help me in my dream, but there's really no words or anything. It's just more of this.
So you didn't actually vocalize a scream.
It wasn't so much a scream as I heard it, and the vocal was more of just like there was no real, like I said, the best I could say is it was slow motion, if anything, not able to really get words out. But in my head, I'm speaking. I'm screaming, I'm saying, wake me up, I know I'm asleep in a sense, and I'm actually saying to wake me up, very, very bizarre. But, as crazy as those things are, every time I've had one of those, that I'm always uneasy with it, and even after it's over, having a hard time going back to sleep. So yeah, very very crazy stuff. You mentioned the movie. I imagine you're kind of teasing about theta states.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we got a few minutes left. I want to invite everybody listening to jump on over to massgravepictures.com. You've done some short films. I know one of them that I absolutely loved was Emma's for Mastectomy. Very disturbing and very very real. And you've got features. You know, Attack of the Brain People, The Blood Slaughter Massacre. I think is out and can be purchased in stores at this point.
Yeah.
And Theta States is the baby. So if you would, got a few minutes here left. If you could kind of let everybody know what's cooking with that film and where they can get a hold of you.
Well, as far as Theta States, we're just about done with post-production, so hopefully we'll be hitting festivals with that, come this winter or so. It's about a guy named Danny who is a chronic insomniac, and he goes to see a doctor who uses sound waves to lull Danny into sleep, and Danny starts to realize that now that he's sleeping, his nightmares are coming into reality. So we kind of mix a lot of the lore of nightmares and sleep paralysis and shadow creatures and imp and the imp on the chest and all that kind of into one big jumble. Like, I really wanted to throw as much as I could at it.
Okay.
So again, pulling from a lot of my own experiences, like, I really want to kind of put this on film.
Right.
It's something that's been in me for a long time. I even tried to write a book about it maybe 10 years ago, and I never finished the novel, but it's coming to life in this movie now.
Very nice. If someone's listening right now, Manny, they want to get a hold of you, talk horror films, talk filmmaking, talk a little bit about your radio show. I think you guys are bringing that back.
Yep.
Where can we send them?
You can go, everything's on massgravepictures.com, including the podcast now. The podcast is What Lurks on Channel X. We do bi-weekly. We've been away for a while because Eric was sick, so we're finally... the first new episode is coming up this Thursday. Well, at the time of this now, it'll be past Thursday when this airs. So the new episode will be up by the time people hear this.
Right.
You can get the podcast on massgravepictures.com. You can also subscribe to it on iTunes and Stitcher and all pick your app. We're all over the place with that. We're all over Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, social media. All just search for Massgrave Pictures or What Lurks on Channel X, and you'll find us.
Right. Or you can hop down to probably one of the amazing gyms that they have in Queens and see this guy and his lovely wife turning themselves into Greek gods. You guys are amazing.
How much time do we have left?
We're just about right, Manny.
Oh, okay.
I got to say goodbye and close out the show. But I wanted to thank you, my friend, so much for joining me tonight. It was a blast.
Thank you. I'd love to come back. I have more stories. If you want me back another time, I'm happy to join you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Guys, Adam Ginsberg with you, True Ghost Stories. More fun stuff on the way. We're going to implement something new next week, as a matter of fact. We're going to start reading some stories that we're finding are popping up in the True Ghost Stories Facebook page. That should be pretty fun, and there's one already there that I saw that I'm going to be reading. So that said, if you would like to check in on what I'm doing, obviously Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I keep it real simple at the Adman40, and you can find my film work on IMDb. That's imdb.me/Adam Ginsberg. And guys, do you ever feel like you're not alone? Do you ever feel like someone or something is near you? Have you felt touched, or that something has brushed up against you? Do you hear voices? Do you have vivid dreams of dead loved ones? Do you see shadow people? What are they? Who are they? An angel or a demon? Or just someone reaching out? We believe something is out there. We want to tell the world the truth. Things are happening around us. Our experiences are not a figment of our imaginations. There are things that walk the earth that are unknown to us. We want to hear more about them. We want to find out what they are. We believe something is out there. We want to tell the world the truth. What are they? Who are they? Guys, this is True Ghost Stories. Tune in next Monday night. We have great guests in store for you. Listen to this incredible program, guys. Adam Ginsberg, myself, along with my cohort at times, Sherri Emily, joining me, founder of True Ghost Stories, right here on WRockRadio.com. WLOR.net for a frightfully entertaining hour of the best paranormal stories ever heard. Until then, good night and happy ghost hunting.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Once again, you can hear True Ghost Stories every week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time live on WLOR.net. And check out twitchproductions.com to see what Adam and Elsie are up to. Their next big event is Immortal Con, coming up next weekend on September 24th in Ronkonkoma, New York at the Clarion Conference Center. Immortal Con is a fantasy and cosplay convention with a secondary cause. See, Elsie Ginsberg was diagnosed with breast cancer many years ago, and part of Immortal Con's mission is to spread awareness and to help get attention to the cause of fighting breast cancer and coming together in support of those who've survived the fight and those who haven't. So if ever there was a show for you to get behind, this is the one. That's going to be it for us here at Channel X this week. We'll be back next week with the full episode, and hope to speak to you guys then. Have a nice week, everybody. Take care.